All right, hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Otis Frampton Live, Wednesday edition. As usual, just going to take a second here and make sure that the audio is good. I think it's good. It is good. I like when it's good. When it's good, well, that's better than bad, right? Awesome. All right, so today's going to be a little different than normal days where I sort of just show my work on whatever is on the table that day. Scheduled today was a work on this Captain America commission. It's a five-page commission, 5 comic pages featuring an entire scene from the movie Captain America: The First Avenger. And I've been working on it bit by bit over time. And I've already shown parts of the process that I'm going to show today, but I want to do something different for today. So to Jared, my client, I apologize. Next week, I will have pages, a new page ready to ink so we can move forward even more beyond the 2 pages I pretty much have finished, inks and colors. So I promise, next week, next Wednesday, inking a new page. But today, what I want to do is, so when I first did this, started working on the colors for this page, I did these 2 panels start to finish. And I kind of wish I hadn't done that because it didn't allow me to show the process that I usually go for, which is to get a comic page or an illustration to this state where it's got its flats, it's got the shading done, and it's ready for sort of the finishing touches. And that's like effects work, adjustment layers, even though in Procreate there aren't really Photoshop style adjustment layers. I still call them adjustment layers. And you'll see why later. Sorry, one second. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I've basically turned off all the layers I had on that were like effects layers, and I'm going to show you my my working process for the final effects for a comic page and illustration start to finish. So let's get going. So for the first panel here, I already added it, but I turned off the layer. So there's no lighting here except for on the characters. And the first thing I would do, which I already had done, is add this layer. It's sort of a dark green color. It's actually the color of the bricks, set to multiply, and I just kind of painted in the shadow area just to give the light source a distinction, to show where the light was going and what the light source was. This is, in visual storytelling terms, this is the establishing shot. This establishes the entire scene. We've got 2 characters, a table, a light, and a room. And it really sets up the conditions for the lighting that I'm going to employ throughout the scene, throughout the 5 pages I'm working on. Next up, I add another layer, also set to multiply using the same green color. And I kind of airbrush in a little bit of more darkness there. And so just to let you know, the first lighting layer is set to like 59% opacity, and this one's all the way up. I think it's all the way up because I merged 2 layers. I did one pass on the shadows and then another pass too. And although on the screen that you're watching, you can't quite, it's not quite as contrasty as I'm looking at it, as I see it on the iPad here. I did my best in the app called Camo Studio, which is the camera app I use to stream into the streaming service. It's as close as I could get. So, all right. So there's that. And I did various things to the backgrounds. I won't tell you about the background stuff. I showed how I did that. That's not important here because it's all the way behind the characters, and we're talking about stuff that's going to go over all of the existing work. One of the next things I did for the first panel is I added a layer with sort of a green that's sort of in this area, like kind of sampled there. And I threw an entire color layer over that first panel, set to color mode, and at about 55%, just to give it a distinct color. And I'll do that for the rest of the page too, but I did that for this panel a little bit more than normal, just to sort of set the tone. And again, that layer is set under the character, so it's not affecting the characters at all yet. All right. So moving on. The next thing that I would do, and I did this already. Again, I've already done it, but I'll show it again here. Is I want the light source to be a warm color, and the shadows in the scene to have a cooler color. So here's how I do that. Here's how I establish that. First thing I do is I go into, I get the flats layer. Let's see, yeah. Get the flats layer, I duplicate that. I'm going to drag it up, and you can see my layers here. I don't know if you can really see it. I already have the warm and cool tones. I've already done it, so I'm repeating the process here so you can see it all at once. So got the flats layer, a duplicate flats layer. I drag it up to right below the line art. Then I lock the pixels on it, and we're going to do there it is. I swipe with two fingers, swipe right on it to lock the pixels. I'm going to go and find my orange. Did I use that kind of? Yeah, I use like that. So pixels are locked. So anything I paint now on this layer is just going to go on the existing pixels. See what I mean there? Now, if you see here, in a previous episode, I actually created a copy of the Colonel's hand and the tray here to be on top of this layer for various reasons. I want to do some lighting, but so it's not going to affect that. So it's actually right here. It's on its own layer. You can see it there. All right. So we've got the characters colored orange now. So you're probably like, why are they colored orange? All right. Now I'm going to two finger swipe again to the right to unlock the pixels. Go down to my shade layer, which is all the shadow areas of the characters, all the areas that I've already painted in as shadow area. I'm going to tap the layer, select all the pixels on that layer, and there's various ways to do that. But what I'm going to do is I'll do this. I will do a cut and paste. What that was, I swipe down with three fingers, and it brings up this context menu. Do it again. Swipe down, three fingers, and cut and paste is right here. I've already done it. Oops. Sorry, I should be narrating better. I apologize. So now it basically took away, it cut away the area that wasn't shaded. So now I can delete that and, whoops, no, I did that opposite way. So I can delete the original one there. Wait, why did it do that? I'm sorry. Don't listen to me. I screwed it up. I'm so sorry. Okay. So let's back to the beginning. Select the shade. I apologize about that. I was mixing up my shade, and so what I want to do is swipe down again and cut. There we go. And basically, the only areas that are now filled with the orange are the areas where the light is showing. That's what I meant to do. I apologize. I was getting mixed up there. So ignore what I said before and only listen to what I'm saying now. Oh, and if you are in the chat watching this, you can still chat with me. I might not be able to respond right away because I'm sort of focused here on a very specific kind of tutorial, but I'll still watch it. All right, so let me just check something. Okay, so I'm going to delete this. Delete these. I think they're screwing me up. They're messing up with my mind. So now, basically, I'm going to rename this to orange color, just to remind myself what it is. I'm going to set it to color mode. And then I'm going to bring it down to about, let's say, 32 for now. We might have to adjust it later, but I'll do it on and off here so you can see it. Here's without. Here's with. It's well, I'll turn it up a little bit. Still too subtle. You can tell now. There's some color to the light basically now. Instead of just being a flat color, flat boring color, it's got a little bit of flavor to it. And I'll go in and I'll add some coloring to the light up here so that it matches the warmth. But right now we're going to go to the other one. I'm going to do the shadow area. So duplicate the flats and drag that up to above the orange layer. And we're going to choose a blue. Lock the pixels. And now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to paint over it. Now, there are different ways of doing this kind of thing, especially in Photoshop, which has more layer tools at its disposal. And I learned how to do this in Photoshop, but I still did it this way in Photoshop because I kind of learned Photoshop wrong, quote unquote wrong. And so and it was kind of lucky for me. So when I transitioned to Procreate, I wasn't so reliant on a lot of the tricks that Photoshop allows for certain things, and I had to do things on a more basic level. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to okay. This time we're going to go here. I'm going to select the shade area, select it, and this unlock the pixels. This is where we're going to do a cut and paste, and then delete that. There he is. Yeah. So now you can see that all that's left is the area of shadow on the characters. I'm going to change that to color mode. Drop that down. Drop that down. So I'm going to put these two into a group. Just call it color overlays, so that I can do an on and off and show you. Okay, that's without, and that's with. And I think it's really clear now what that does. It gives a warm and a cool tone to the characters' faces and bodies, and makes it a little bit more interesting. Sort of like color grading a shot in a movie. You're giving the image more visual interest, and the orange and the blue are complementary colors, so they work together well in the scene. I'll probably be adjusting these a little bit. It's a little too much. I want it to be a little more subtle, but I also wanted you guys to be able to see it. All right, so we've got that done. I think next, before moving on, I'm going to do what I talked about earlier, which is where is it? Oh, that's my rough, sorry. My background. There we go. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to grab that same orange that I used for the lighting. And I'm going to use soft round and just sort of paint out from the light source a little bit like this, just a little bit, and have it sort of fade off. And I'm going to go in and erase a little bit later. But what I should have done first is got a little past there. So I'm going to make a selection just for this area so I don't paint out of it. All right, so we got that done. Now, got the soft brush. And I don't know if you know this, here's a nice tip for Procreate users. If you want to use the same brush, if I wanted to make this soft brush be the eraser brush without going to have to search for it, you can just long hold the eraser and it changes to that. Same thing works for smudge. Long hold, it'll switch to the brush you're using. Pretty cool. So now I'm going to go in and just do some, actually, you know what? I actually don't want to use this. I want to use this brush. It's a soft kind of cloudy brush, and it gives a little more variation. So I'm going to go in and start erasing away just a little bit, because we don't want it. We want it to fade. I'm using a more textured brush to erase just a little bit. I'm going to lower the opacity on this in a bit, but right now I'm just concerned about getting the shape I want for the light. Let's go in here. We don't want it above, because that would not look right. Here we go. Now, it was still set to normal mode there. So now I want to put it to color mode. And now that I've got it in color mode, I kind of see that maybe I do want it a little more stronger. So I'm going to go in here, back to my big soft brush, and I'm actually going to paint. I'm going to create a new layer. Meant to do that. Set to color mode and do a big swath, but lower the opacity a lot so that, there we go. So it looks like it looks like it fades. Stronger at the top, less stronger at the bottom. Let's make sure that it's not too strong at the top, just in case. I'm going to leave this set to these opacities for now, because I'm going to be doing more effects work on top of this. So I don't know how strong I want that orange light to be. That said, I'm actually going to create a new layer, set to color mode, go back and grab that blue that I used for the shadow areas and paint it into this shadow area. And I'll give it a little bit of a Gaussian blur, soften it. There we go. Now it's starting to match the rest of the panels. Drop the opacity. Yeah, it's all starting to match now. And I do want a consistent look throughout the 5 pages. I'm going for a sort of a, and I'm not going to do too many comic booky things like have a panel have like pop colors, that are different from the normal colors. I want it to feel consistent. At least that's my plan. I might change it, but this is the first page in sequence. So for now, definitely I want it to be consistent for at least this page, if that makes sense. All right, moving on. Oh, and so I still have the line art for the background here in black. I'm going to go in later and paint that to make it a little more subtle, and also add some stuff to the mirror. But right now, I'm really focused on adding these final effects. All right. So I already went through and added no. Let's do something else first. Sorry. This is something. Here's an example. For just this panel, I wanted it to look like there was a spotlight, basically the harshness of that main light coming down, and I wanted to focus really on the tray and the food. So I went in and painted. Turn it up more. Painted a little bit of a vignette onto it. That's full opacity. That's lowered opacity. And for that, I have a layer set to multiply at about 70%, using a color, this purple. It's a dark purple that I use for most of my shading. instead of black, it's better to use a darker purple than a black if you're going for that kind of thing. I've found. All right. Next up, I'm not going to redo these because I like what I did with them, but just to show you, I wanted to give another effect, which was to create sort of like an overlit look. Like if you're dealing with a film camera and you've got a bright light source, it kind of blooms a little bit, and that's the kind of look I wanted for the bounce light from the table. I wanted it to look like there was a lot of bounce light coming up, and so I created this layer. You can see it best in these two panels. You can see I went in and painted with a soft brush a little bit of a really bright sort of desaturated yellow. It's set to add mode, which makes it a little brighter, but also retains some of the color. It's a good mode for that kind of thing. And I basically went in and painted a little bit of it in each of the instances. And that's actually for this panel. That's the reason that I went in and I did a paste of the whole page and basically did a cutout of the Colonel's arm, because I wanted the brightness of the overlit area to be in front of his hand. It helped create contrast between the foreground element and the background element, and I think it worked pretty well. You can see it without it on here, and then with it on. And I think I did the same thing in a different way for this panel, but I think I just erased away a part to make the hand look a little bit more like it was in the foreground. So that said, I'm going to create a new layer set to add mode. What I have not done yet, let's go back to my palettes. Let's grab that white, that brick white. What I haven't done is added it to this. So I'm just going to subtly add, whoops, a little bit too much there. Let's erase that away. Whoa. Sorry. Come on, get it together. Boy, it's like either too big or too small. It's like a Goldilocks thing going on with the size of that brush. And I'm just going to fade it down, and I'll go back in, erase randomly to give it a little bit of textured look. There, now I've got some brightness up there. Going to reduce the opacity on that. Here we go. Then I'm going to merge that down onto the other layer, the other overlit layer. Set to add mode already, so I'm saving layer space, and I don't need that little part on its own. Okay, let's do one more. Let's do a big sort of spray of light like that. Just blur it. Oops, set to add. We're going to drop this way down, but it'll give a little bit extra light in that area. Colored light also. There we go. I'm going to merge that down, just join up with the rest of the light. Oops, let me undo that real quick. I forgot to make sure that I didn't paint beyond the borders of that panel. There we go. Now I can merge it down. Okay. So here's where I'm going to get into adjustments that affect the whole page. Oh, by the way, so the dialogue balloons, I have them in their own folder. I did the same thing I do with all of my comic pages. I letter my comic pages at the layout and pencils stage so that the artwork and the dialogue works all together. Here, let me just do something real quick. Oops. So here are the final. Let's see if I can get something a little rougher. So, okay, here. So here are my initial roughs for this page. I'm just going to do a sidebar on the dialogue for real quick. And so this is how I basically lay out a page, stick figures and really rough drawings. But what I'll do then is I'll go in and I'll start placing in the lettering. You can see that it actually moved around as I refined the pages. You can see where I drew in sort of temporary dialogue balloons, knowing where they probably would be. And they moved around a little bit, changed. But in doing this, I made sure that I had room for the artwork and that the artwork was always working in concert with the imagery. One of my biggest pet peeves with comics is, on comics with teams where you got separate people working on separate things, when dialogue covers up artwork that the artist spent a lot of time on. Big pet peeve. But also, I think that it makes for a less satisfying reading experience when dialogue balloons are badly placed or not placed with forethought. It's a big pet peeve of mine. So anyway, I always letter my comics at the layout stage. I think it's really important. If you are a one-man band comic creator, highly suggest doing that. It'll save you headaches in the long run. It'll make your comic pages read better. It'll make you a better storyteller. I really believe that. So anyway, the dialogue balloons are always present here because I did them first, or at the earliest stage. And yes, whoops, what I didn't do? I actually didn't finish. I left my rough sort of, you can see it here, my little balloon roughs, the rough coloring I did. I haven't fixed it yet. You know what? I'm going to do that right now just to show you something. So the lines for the dialogue balloons, you can see that on its own layer. And yes, I do, I don't know if I just said this or not, I do all of my lettering in Procreate. I don't, the whole comic lettering needs to be done in Illustrator or Vector App. Total myth. All the print comics I've done for years now in Procreate and even before that in Photoshop, all non-vector lettering. It's all pixel art. So don't let people make you think you have to do it one way. You don't. Anyway, so we got our line. Our lines are the lines for the balloons here. I'm going to tap on that, set it to reference, and in doing so, when I go back to my color layer, which is will be just white for the coloring of the inside of the balloons. Now I can do this. Pretty cool, huh? Let's see that again. Now I'm able to do this because the line art layer is set to reference, which means that if I color drop into the area where the reference is, even on a different layer, it will use the reference layer as its boundaries. Easy way of doing your lettering balloon fills. And now I can just do that very quickly with the rest of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, boom, done. Awesome. Now I'm going to turn off the reference for that because I don't want it to it'll affect any other layer, whatever layer you have set to reference. So you can use that trick in different ways, but remember to turn it off after you're done using it for whatever your purpose is, or it'll affect other layers. All right, so text is done. Now, like I was going to say a while back, we're going to start doing the big overall color adjustments. And to do that, So I need to do something real quick. You need to like just turn away for a second. Because I need to. All right. So this is the color that I want to work with here. All right. So color-wise, it's sort of a greenish color. I'd probably sample it from the background for this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start creating what I call mother colors. A mother color is any color overlay that you use over an area or the entire part of an image to basically treat every color below that with another color, if that makes sense. Here I'll show you an extreme example of that. Let's delete this. So here, I'm going to turn this off so you don't get confused. I'm looking at it in case you're watching my panels palette too. So okay, so right now the characters are only being affected by the two colors I added to them, the orange and the blue for the warm and the cool tones. But what I want to do is I want to have a color that basically affects everything else and gives it a slight tint. So here's what I'm going to do. A color drop onto a new layer, the entire thing. Now I'm going to change that to color mode. Now, here's an extreme example of what I'd call a mother color. That green is now affecting every color beneath it. And it's almost as if there aren't any colors, and it's a green tone set on top of a bunch of gray tones, but it's not. It's a green color in color mode affecting every other color below it. You can see it do that. This is something that can be really effective if it's a neat trick if you're not really great with color theory, which I'm not, which is one reason that I've used this trick for a long time, and I don't remember if I saw somebody else call it mother color or if that's a term I came up with, but it's like it works. So I always call it my mother color. All right, so we're going to drop the opacity on that mother color way down because we just want it to tint it a little. We want it to mostly help out with those blues and oranges, and just put a little bit of green into it because obviously the green of the environment is what I'm hoping to bleed into the two other colors. So we got that, and it's I didn't put too much. I mean, again, I can put a lot. I can put all of it, or I can put just a little bit. And I'll show you one trick. If you do this kind of thing and you're worried that it's desaturating the colors that you've already thrown it onto your piece, one trick to get to fix that is after you've done all of your adjustments, all of your mother colors and all that stuff, you basically copy and paste the entire image on top of everything else. And you can do this in Photoshop with an adjustment layer. But for Procreate, this is the trick. When everything's done, copy and paste the entire thing, and then you can do a saturation adjust. You can adjust the saturation up a bit, and that'll bring the colors, the saturation up, make them brighter, more saturated, and but it'll also be doing that from the point of post mother color, if you know what I mean. So you're getting some of the saturation back, but you're not losing the influence of the tints that you've added. All right, so let's do. So I threw another sort of desaturated orange mother color onto it originally, and I'm not. I might reduce. Just imagine I went through the process of doing this again. Same thing, color overlay. Here, turn this off. Turn the new color overlay way up. That's what we're dealing with here. But I think I want its influence to be a little bit less. So basically, what I'm doing here is I'm taking a warm and a cool and a warm mother color, and I'm mixing them. on separate layers, but they're mixing together to create a whole. And the whole that it's creating is this sort of, I don't know the words to say. I remember watching behind the scenes on Lord of the Rings, and Peter Jackson was talking about color grading, and he described something as being a urine color, like urine. And that kind of describes this. It's kind of icky, you know. I mean, this is an interrogation room, so I don't want it to be. I want it to be a little icky, so to speak. So that works. All right. We have one more. I'm just going to delete this. One more thing to do. Two more, actually. The first would be this, which is already there. Every piece that I do here, let me just turn it way up so you can see it. I throw a noise layer onto every image at the very end, and it goes over everything. Set to overlay. Here it is all the way up. You can see it. So basically, you use the noise filter to create a noise layer to whatever degree you think is best, and then set to overlay. I bring it down to about 10 usually, and that just helps to break up the airbrush and make it look a little less digital. You can really see it there. Excuse me. All right, so like I said, there's one more thing that I want to do for this page. I still have some work to do on this panel overall, but otherwise it's already there. So here's the final trick, and I'm going to create a new layer underneath the other 3 adjustment layers. Let's actually take these and group them. Rename it adjustments. There we go. Now I'm going to set this layer to multiply mode. Probably one of the most used color modes in digital art, at least for me. It's very good at creating contrast, retaining color with that contrast. It's the layer mode that I use for the shading. Like the shading in this character here, the shadow areas were painted in with that dark purple. Set to multiply mode at about 40%, 45% maybe, a little darker. This time, what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to drop that onto the whole page. And again, I'm using this green color that I've been using for the other mother color, but this time it's a mother shadow, so to speak. Set to multiply mode. So what I'm going to do is grab my soft brush, and I'm just going to sort of, with the eraser, I'm going to erase away areas of focus in each of the panels. I should probably select each panel so I don't screw anything up. Areas of focus, just erase away. I'm basically erasing away the darkness. Kind of giving a spotlight to certain areas. And I don't do this with every piece. Sometimes I'll add little spotlights to the characters' faces in other ways. But for this one, I'm going with this technique where I erase away the darkness instead of adding light. And I'll tell you why in a second. Just let me go through the process here. And then finally for the first panel, let's drop this down. All right, so I'll finish there. Now, why did I do this? Well, here it is without. And I want this, like, if you watch the original scene, it's a very, very dark scene. There's very little lighting. It's very high contrast, lots of shadows, very dark. And I wanted to get that across while still having all of my colors, visible and understandable. So I chose to do this. Now I'm not going to keep it at this level. This is just, I wanted to have it at the absolute extreme so that I could paint away what I really wanted to focus on. And I'm just going to drop the opacity. Maybe, let's see what 30 does. Now you don't want to go too far down, or you don't want it to be too dark, because especially for something like this, where if my client, a commission client, if he prints these out, I don't want it to be so dark that the colors become muddy. It's something you got to think about when you're dealing with issues of print. But just to give it a little more darkness, just a little more shadow. And then because you've erased away sections that are meant to be focused on, that makes it look even more sort of overlit, as if it was filmed by a camera. One thing I think the it needs to go down a little bit more. I'm gonna cut and paste. Oh, I reached my layer limit. Look at that. Huh. That's funny. I gotta do some layer management. I usually don't bump up against the layer limit in Procreate because I don't use hundreds of layers like on comic pages. But this is I'm actually working on an 11 by 17 inch Procreate canvas because if this is a commission. If the client wants to print this out so that it's the same size as the original artwork that they're going to be getting, the original line art, I want it to be good enough to print. So I colored it at 11 by 17 inches to match the original artwork. For other comic work, I work at comic page size, actual physical comic page size, which is like 9 by 6, something like that. So I never run up against the Procreate layer limit unless I'm working on a huge canvas, which I rarely do. So what I was going to do was I was going to cut away this panel's mother shadow and reduce it a bit, but I can do that later. That's basically what I wanted to show you today. So I'm gonna have to go in and decide. I'll have to flatten some things down here, get some layers back. It's frustrating, but it's a limit that I rarely run up against. All right. I think that's about it. This page is pretty much almost all done. I need to do some more touch-up stuff on the top panel to finish up the background. It's a little dark, a little too dark still. I need to brighten it up a bit because the background's a little, it's going to get muddy if you print it out. All right, but that's it for today. And Jared, if you're out there watching, I hope you understand. I just wanted to do a special episode today using one of your pages as an example. Next week, I will have a new page in this commission ready to ink, and we will move forward. And that is all for today. I will be back tomorrow at 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. to work on a couple of commissions, doing a Hellboy and then the Daredevil piece, continuing work on those pieces. I think for each piece, I'll be finishing up the digital pencils, and then next week I'll be able to start inking them, which will be fun. In the meantime, please like, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff on both Rumble and YouTube. I really appreciate you watching. Thank you so much, and have a great day. Take care.